Hello students, we are going to do the Celtic Knot lesson. I need to give attribution first of all to my friend Alisha Marchewka from Baltimore, Maryland. She teaches at Patterson High School where I used to teach, and what's interesting is that she didn't teach there when I taught there. She taught elsewhere in the city, and she taught this at a professional development that we went to as art teachers in Baltimore City like 10 years ago or more. So this is a favorite of my middle school kids. So Alisha, thank you for this awesome lesson. I'm going to show my middle school kids how to do this now. To do it, you need all the materials that are in your Google Classroom. This is the only one that you need to print out. But we're going to make some adjustments, okay? You see how big this triangle is? You're going to have to cut that triangle down to fit on the paper that I gave you in your packet. We're going to have to make it just a little bit smaller so that the triangle doesn't go off the edges of the paper. I'm going to show you how to do that. So to do this lesson, the first thing that we need to do is cut out the triangle on this piece of paper. Okay, now, you see here where it says outside edge, no lines off this side. You want to put an arrow right here, just draw it very lightly, so that you remember which side is up, okay, once you've cut this out. So, cut that out. Okay. So I have my little arrow, and my little triangle, and look, I can still see my up arrow, so I know where the up side is. But I need to cut it a little smaller. I'm going to show you why. So I'm just going to sit that aside. Here is one of the sheets of drawing paper. For this project to work, the paper has to be square. So we're going to make a square the quickest, easiest way possible by folding the paper down. You're going to fold this corner over to this side, and you're going to fold it at this other corner right here. Okay. Oops, and try and get it as exact as possible. You know, I always say perfectionism is the enemy of art, but there are times when you want to get as close as you possibly can. We are not machines, we are human beings. Nothing we ever do is going to be that perfect, but we want to get it pretty close. So now I'm going to cut alongside this edge here. And now I have a square. I also have a piece of paper that's folded diagonally in one direction. The next thing I'm going to do is fold it diagonally in the other direction. Okay, so now I have a piece of paper that's folded like this. Now I'm going to fold it in half in a rectangular shape in both directions also. Okay. This was a 9 by 12 sheet of paper when I started, okay? 9 by 12. 9 by 12 is the paper size that I have the most of, which is why I sent so much of it home with you. But when I do the Celtic Knot project, I usually work on a slightly larger piece of paper. I wasn't sure I had enough of that, so we're just working on these 9 by 12. So you see how there's a bunch of triangles in here? This triangle, the way this works is you put this point here that's going in the opposite direction of the top in the center. But look what happens. This goes way off the paper when you do that. Okay? So I had to make this smaller. And so what I did was I folded this corner to corner on the long straight side. So you're going to fold it at this corner up here at the top. Okay? So you're going to fold it corner to corner All right. And then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to measure 1/2 inch in. So measure 1/2 inch in. All right. Now I'm going to connect the dots with my ruler. You can do this with a straight edge too. Of course, you can't measure 1/2 inch with a straight edge. All right. And now I'm going to cut on that line. And now I have a smaller triangle that is exactly the right shape. It has to be a right triangle. What is a right triangle? A right triangle is one that has a 90-degree angle here so that you can get a perpendicular in both directions. You know, I'm not using geometry and math language right now because I'm an art teacher and I can't remember what you call those things, but if you want to know, ask your math teacher. So I still have my up arrow. I still have my 2 straight sides. I still have this one long side. What I'm going to do now is very lightly or very small right top right there. And now I can get rid of that arrow. Okay? Now look at why I wanted to make that smaller. So I have this piece of paper and I need to fit this. I'm going to come down a little bit now so that you can see this a little better. I don't need to be quite so wide here. Okay. I want to fit this. In fact, I'm going to put a little dot down here so that you know that this is the part that goes in the center every time, and I'm going to do it on both sides. Okay? Because the next thing that I want to do is see where this still hangs off the paper a little bit? Right there. I am just going to draw a little line right there where it overlaps the paper, and I'm going to cut that off. Okay? The reason I'm going to do that is because at no time do I want my design to go off the edge of the paper. All right? So I'm going to flip-flop this around and trace a design that I'm going to make on this triangle. Okay, so I'm going to do it all the way around. So I need for my design to never go off the edge of the paper. By cutting that little point off, it helps me remember, don't put your lines off the edge of the paper. Now the next thing that you need to do is get a piece of tape. I did not give you any tape in your kit because I figure most of you have tape laying around the house. It can be Scotch tape, it can be masking tape, it doesn't really matter. I did not have enough tape to give all of you tape, okay? So you want to put your pencils together and make sure that they are not at an angle. You don't want one to be down here and one here. You want them to be straight up and down. Once you have them taped together, you are going to make 6 curvy parallel lines and start down here about, not more than 1/2 inch up, because you'll end up with a big hole in the middle of your Celtic knot if you do that. And you want to draw straight like that. Look what happens if I draw like this. My lines overlap. We're not making ribbons, okay? We want them to be relatively parallel, okay? So you want it to be, the lines to be equidistant from each other as you make the curves, okay? So there's one set of parallel lines. Now, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to draw another set of lines. Please don't make a design that's exactly like mine, okay? And you know what? I'm going to erase that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you let your lines touch each other at the edges, they're going to cause you problems when you flip your triangle around, okay? So there's 1, 2, okay? Now I need to get 2 or 3 more. 3. I'm going to try for 3 more, okay? So I'm going to do 1 here. And notice how I'm really curving them around because I want them to be kind of twisty. Right? Alright. Now I'm going to do 1 more. One of the cool things about this project is no 2 designs are ever the same. They're all different. Alright, that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 places where they're coming. I think 4 is probably enough for this one. If you can get 5 on there, great. But I think these triangles are going to be too small. Okay. The next thing you have to do is decide which ribbon goes above and which one goes below. You want to show some overlapping. So I'm going to make a decision that this one right here is the one that's going to be on top, and that this one here is going to go underneath. Now that means that it went underneath here, so it's got to go on top here. So I'm going to erase those lines. Okay? So because this one went, and I'm going to reestablish that line on top there. Okay? I'm going to reestablish this line on top here. Now, since this one went underneath here, it needs to go on top here. So I'm going to erase, wait a minute, I erased the wrong lines. I want it to go on top. This can get very confusing. Take your time. Think it through. So that is on top and this is underneath. Okay, this is underneath. Well, since this is underneath here, it's got to be on top here. All right. All right. And this one is only going under one thing. All right, so there is my design. All right, so I've got this interesting design. You're probably wondering how in the world is this going to end up being a Celtic knot? You'll see. All right, so then what you want to do is take your black marker, and with the pointy tip, this is one of those funky dual-purpose markers that is both wide and pointy, and you want to use the pointy tip and trace all your lines, okay? And you want to make sure that you don't trace lines that are going underneath, right? Ooh, that one's a little off. Who cares? Doesn't matter, okay? We're going to erase all the extra pencil lines in a minute. Okay. Just keep tracing. Now that I've gotten all of my lines traced on one side, I'm going to take that pink eraser. If only I could find one here. I'm going to take that pink eraser or my pencil eraser, and I'm going to erase all the extra lines that I can see. I want to get rid of all that. Okay? I'm going to keep top right there. In fact, I'm going to write it on the back side. And now I'm going to trace the lines that I can see coming through the back side. Now be careful not to cross over, because this is where students sometimes get into trouble tracing a line that they didn't mean to trace. You want to make sure your over-under lines remain consistent. Okay. I should have put on some Irish music, huh? Some Celtic music. But my kids are probably sick of it because March, I believe, is, it's been so long since we were in school, I can't remember. I think March is Cultural Irish Heritage Month as well as National Women's History Month. And so I was playing Celtic music every day by different artists, and so they're probably really tired of that. Of course, they always want to hear country music. All right, so now I have this. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to carefully position this here, and actually I'm going to position it underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this lightly, loosely, into the little triangle space that I made for it. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and just very loosely secure it just so it doesn't move around on me. Okay, like that. And look, I can see to trace my Celtic knot. So here I go. I'm going to trace my Celtic knot. I think it would be so interesting to find out how the Celts actually made these designs. Did they do it the way that we're doing it, or did they just have an intuitive understanding of radial design? Inquiring minds want to know. So some of my students were probably outraged when I said they always want to hear country music. There are other students who always want to hear rap. Yes, even out here in rural Montana, rap rules. The most popular music I ever played was when I played Tupac for African American History Month. And of course I played Tupac because I taught in Baltimore for 5 years. I love Tupac. All right, so there is the beginning of my design. Here's why you don't want your lines to go off the top, because they'll just go out there. They won't connect to the next piece. Okay? So now I'm going to take that piece of tape and I'm going to flip my piece, and I want to make sure that I position this right. If you always get that point right in the corner, and always get these sides in between your folds, your piece is always going to be in the right position. Look at that. Oh, looky there. It's just a tiny bit off. Doesn't matter, because look what I can do. I can fix it when I do the drawing. In fact, it makes sort of an interesting little flourish. Look at that. You can start to see my pattern coming to life there. So now I'm going to remove this. And this is why you only want it just loosely attached. You don't want to tear your paper. So I just did that. Now I need to flip it this way. Put it in that corner. Tape it loosely and keep tracing. So, if you like this, if you're a teacher watching this, and you like this Celtic Knot project, please keep in mind, it is not my project. It is Alisha Marchewka's from Patterson High School in Baltimore. And if you like this project, you could thank her by supporting her Donors Choose, if she has one. You could send her an email, maybe share a lesson with her, as I've done in the past occasionally. It's one of the cool things about having art teacher friends. We love to share. Look at that. My pattern comes to life. All right, let's keep going. This is so cool. I really enjoy these little designs. All right. So now how do I know to put this? I'm always putting this little dot in the corner. Top is always up on the top. And look, it won't fit in there this way. It won't. I mean, it could, but it doesn't. You always want the flat part up. You always want the flat part to be parallel to the edge of your paper. Okay? That's how you know you've got it going in the right direction. Also, here's another way. Oh no, my pattern doesn't match. Well, your pattern doesn't match because your piece is in the wrong direction. So there we go. Now my pattern matches. Put the little piece of tape on there. Flip it. Keep tracing. You know, I felt a little bit like the engineers at NASA in that movie Apollo 13 when I started to show you how to do this project today, because I wasn't sure that we were going to do this project when I sent your art kit home. You know, I didn't know what we were going to do. We had all these other things planned that we have stuff right here in the classroom for. But when I had to make art kits for you, I just thought, well, here, this is enough to get us through 10 weeks. I'll think of something to do with this. And I did already have the Celtic Knot project planned, but I didn't have to think about the size of the paper because I have the right size in the classroom. Well, I sent you home with 10 sheets of that 9 by 12 drawing paper and forgot that you need the 12 by 16 drawing paper to use the triangle that comes on Alisha's, or Mrs. Marchewka, to you students, on her worksheet. So I had to punt, and I figured out before I started the video that I could just cut the triangle down and it would work. So the reason that made me feel like the engineers in the Apollo 13 movie is because there's a scene in there. If you've ever seen this movie, and if you haven't, it's a great movie. Watch it while you're home, social distancing. It's amazing. I'm sure you can get it on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. Because there's this wonderful scene where the engineers at Mission Control have to figure out how to get the carbon dioxide scrubbers in one module, the one that they were never designed to come back in, to scrub the carbon dioxide out of the air, because none of the carbon dioxide scrubber filters or pieces were the same size as the ones in the capsule that they started out in. And so one of the lead engineers brings this big box of equipment and supplies, and he dumps it out on a table and says, "We got to make this fit that using nothing but this." And it was a great lesson in resourcefulness, and spoiler alert, they all came back alive, mission accomplished, nobody died, it was wonderful. But that's kind of how I felt doing this lesson today. Okay, I got to teach them how to do this using nothing but what I put in their art kits. And that too is a creative exercise. Orson Welles said, "The enemy of art is the absence of limitations." And what that means is exactly what I just proved. There's always a way to make something happen, and sometimes you get more creative and more resourceful when you don't have everything you need. Or everything you think you need. You don't have to have the perfect supplies. I am just not the kind of person who would say, "Oh, well, I guess we can't do this project now. We don't have the right size paper. I just made it work." You can do that too, students and teachers. All right, so I just keep flipping and tracing and doing my little song and dance narration here. Something I'm totally not used to doing when I'm making art. I mentioned before, I'm usually just deadly silent and drawing. Oh my goodness, I only have 2 sections left. All right, let's flip it. Also, when I'm doing these little demonstrations, I have no idea how often I repeat myself. If I repeated myself, well, you know what? Repetition is one of the ways that we learn. For those of you who've already got it, I apologize for having to hear it over and over again. But I don't think I did say this. This is a prime example of radial symmetry. Radial design and radial symmetry. Students, radial symmetry and symmetry, both symmetry and asymmetry are words that will be on your upcoming vocabulary quiz. I just heard a collective groan out there in cyberspace. Oh, quiz, I gotta take a quiz. Yes. Teachers gotta teach, students gotta learn, and quizzes gotta happen. I'm so mean. One more and I'm done with the tracing part. This is the hardest part. It's like once this part gets done, it's the easiest thing in the world to finish. Now, I want to reiterate to my students in particular, if you make a mistake, this is why we're using pencil. I do not want to see anybody go, "Oh no, I traced it wrong." Okay, that A is wasteful. B, it is going to use up your paper. I don't have an unlimited supply of paper to send home with you, okay? Please just trace lightly, use your eraser. Don't panic. Remember Bob Ross and the Happy Little Trees. Notice how my little things didn't match up perfectly and I fixed it. It was no big deal. Breathe in, breathe out. Relax. And don't wad up your paper every time you think you've made a mistake. Okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we do that. That is a Celtic knot. All right? You have your little piece. You have your paper. You have your tape, all of that. Okay? If you have questions, you can put them in the comments below this YouTube video. My students can email me. I'll be back with what you do next in the next video.